September 1st, getting ready for the tent. The feeling come over me was so intense. Me take off all of me clothes and jump sorry back fence.
Reid, with a Creole, but we no normal. With a coffee, and we royal. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a loon pretty girl steady chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a loon pretty girl steady chase me? Minor, tell you things you want make you catch feelings. Your mere existence you want left to examine. Ebenezer me gone, me know for the speed complain. Believe woman sweet like stew pumpkin. See me, but you don't know me. Confident, say that me bossy. Inquisitive, you call me nosy. Defend me rights, holler at me chancy. Me know this show no mercy. We don't take no back chat from nobody. You don't have feel like me, but you must respect me. Tell me this more. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl steady chase me. Me cool and deadly. Machine gun Kelly. Machiavelli. Stay ready like Freddy. We have woman plenty. Woman the city, woman the country. You coulda act like you don't want believe me. Ask the white, that me ballet. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl steady chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl steady chase me? Lot of sexy woman come out of the valley. Me like the way the body move when them the party. And a piece white and Alta Leslie. And the one name Gilda Courtney. Dano Jam, Soda Mush Jelly. From me Lille, me know where to do with me till it. Me grow up as a bedroom bully. Book out with vein full up them belly. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl steady chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl steady chase me? I am a royal coffee, my style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl steady chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl steady chase me? Reid, with a Creole, but we no normal. With a coffee, and we royal. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl steady chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl steady chase me? Minor, tell you things you want make you catch feelings. Your mere existence you want left to examine. Ebenezer me gone, me know for the speed complain. Believe woman sweet like stew pumpkin. See me, but you don't know me. Confident, say that me bossy. Inquisitive, you call me nosy. Defend me rights, holla that me chancy. Me know this show no mercy. We don't take no back chat from nobody. You know have feel like me, but you must respect me. Tell me this more. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. You coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Me cool and deadly. Machine gun Kelly. Machiavelli. Stay ready like Freddy. We have woman plenty. Woman the city, woman the country. You coulda act like you don't want believe me. Ask the white, that me ballet. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. You coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? Lot of sexy woman come out of the valley. Me like the way the body move when them the party. And a piece white and Alta Leslie. And the one name Gilda Courtney. Dano Jam, Sadamus Jelly from me Lille. Me know where to do with me till it. Me grow up as a bedroom bully. Book out with vein full up them belly. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. You coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? I am a royal coffee, my style sticky like taffy. You coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? Reid with a Creole.
Many more is open. To the right one, Jaja Subway Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And if that Jaja with the love we heart will never be broken. One door is closed, many more is open. To the right one, Jaja Subway Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And if that Jaja with the love, me one bread that try to stop me in a me box.
All right. I believe we are on. G Mike with you on a Wednesday evening, as we usually are. This is where our podcast now airs from. Every Wednesday evening, we had tried a little Friday thing, which did all right, but we believe that most folks are into the party mood coming Friday, and we try to keep the conversation, well, I'd say civil, but we also try to keep things stern. We want to address the issues in a frank, open way. We have no secret cows, no whipping boy, no agenda as such. We have no issues to pick with anybody in particular, no particular party. We don't go red or blue or right or left at all. We try to be righteous, not right. And I think the whole is a misnomer. The label of being put in right as opposed to left, and right leaning and left leaning and far right and far left. I think they should not use right at all. Go south, go north, go some other direction, but right is right, and only right can be right. We have a couple of issues. We're expected to be joined this evening, of course, by Firebrand, the man who has the government all nervous. I'm talking about Mr. Jeremy Enriquez. We know that the teachers were out in mass last Friday They turned Belmopan green for a while there. We know that today there was and Deidre had brought it up sometime during the Facebook Day that the retired civil servants were also now getting ready to make some noise. They believe that their pension has been the same for a while. I really think what has happened is that the cabinet secretary, Mr. Stuart Leslie, has opened a can of worms. The prime minister, instead of trying to put the lid back on that can, has in fact let the worms out. All right, Friday's CY host entertainment segment, wonderful. See Smoke 5.0 on Friday evenings. All right, we are here on Wednesdays, and we deal with the tough issues of the day. There we go now. Jeremy, good evening. Your mic is muted, my brother. Yeah, there you go. We are on. The man that has the government all nervous, and then the shake and leave it there. How you doing, my brother?
Quite well. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. I hope you're all well too. You're looking much better than the last time.
Boy, I tell you what, the pain is not intense. So I'm blessed. I feel like a miracle has occurred. I'm doing well.
Great.
God is great. God is great. Yeah. Well, we're looking at things in Belize. How is the case going, by the way? Maybe you could fill us in before we go any further. We have, as many of people out there know, Germany has a case with the redistricting matter and trying to get the government of the day to abide by the will of the Constitution. Is that putting it properly?
Definitely. As I've mentioned in my writings and in all my media appearances, that's that the government must abide by the Constitution. That is what they're sworn to uphold when they get into office. And in fact, the government just started a new round of a new term in office, and we noticed last week that they swore to abide by the Constitution, and we definitely have to continue to hold them to that. It is not that they have no choice to say, I will abide by this part and I won't abide by this part. No, that is the contract under which they come into office, so we must hold them accountable.
Now, Jeremy, what more can we, the general public, do to hold them accountable? You, as a person, has been doing what you can. You have taken the matter as far as the court. I'm sure it's not an easy road. It's certainly not a cheap road because lawyers don't come cheaply. So, what more can we, the general public, do? Though?
Well, first, more people are aware now about the case. More people are aware that this government has called elections and has been returned to office unconstitutionally, even though they had promised the last term that they would have abided by the Constitution. They didn't, and they outmaneuvered us in a sense to get back into office. There's a lot of conflicts of interest by the Minister of Constitutional Affairs, by the Elections and Boundaries Commission, to ensure that the status quo remains as it is right now. So we must work towards changing that. But more urgently, we have been taking on this case, running up bills. We have, even personally, all the filings that I've done, the copying, the travel to Belize City is all my expense. And this whole few months is all my personal expense, as well as the attorney who is supporting me in this case. He also running up some expense by not compensating those attorneys who are also those junior attorneys who are also helping him in the case. So we have a GoFundMe site which I could share later on this page, and we'll ask people to please continue to assist us and to donate to this cause. For those who have donated, I am extremely grateful. Even though we have not touched that yet, we have we're trying to raise as much as about 15,000 US dollars. Um, I'm extremely grateful for those who have contributed, and I would like others to please assist us in this case. So far, even though we did not win to get the injunction that we wanted before election, the case still continues in that the judge is putting an order for wasted cost, which means we have to pay. He's saying that we should pay half the amount that the government incurred for this case, even though the government is breaking the law and is using taxpayers' money to fight against the people. We are appealing that wasted cost, and so so that matter is still in court, and that is what we're trying to resolve right now. And we intend to go to the Caribbean Court of Justice if needs be. So that's where we're at.
We're gonna share that again later, but I'd like you to read it off now. What's the GoFundMe? You don't have it with you.
I do not have that right on me right now, but I promise I'll get it by the time.
Wonderful. Because we need to assure this certainly is a worthwhile case. I think people need to be involved. People need to know what is going on. I see a story on the news about this is not redistricting, but it's reorganizing the borders of certain cities and towns. Have you seen that? And how is that going to factor into the whole? Yeah, we have the GoFundMe up there.
Thanks.
GoFundMe 992B500 F7, correct?
Yes.
Folks, we'd like to encourage you, if there's any way that you can spare a few pennies, throw something at the kitty, make we get this case going, because it's something that makes a whole lot of sense. Obviously, if we're going to have a constitution, we have to live by the constitution.
Of
we
course.
have to abide by it.
Yes.
And you rightly stated, to a person, they went in there, held the Bible, raised their hands and said, I swear to abide by the Constitution. So we have to hold them to that.
Definitely.
Right? Now, as far as I forget what they're not calling it redistricting, but rebordering. I believe they are, and thinking about making Ladyville a town on its own. I believe San Pedro got expanded and engulfing a couple of little villages or something like that. Is there any connection between the two matters?
Not at all. They are both separate entities. One is to define the borders of specific municipalities and towns, to redefine it, just because some of these towns have grown over the years, and it's different than an electoral division, which is a much larger entity. For example, let's say Belize City itself will have its own defined borders, but within Belize City, there are electoral divisions. And of course, most of these electoral divisions in Belize City are far less than the required minimum or average number of registered electors. And that has to change. There is, for example, in Stan Creek West, it is still the largest electoral division with over 10,500 voters, and still climbing, with one area representative. And we have a division like Fort George or even Mesopotamia with less than 3,000 registered voters. And so therefore, that disparity has to be corrected. And that is what the political parties, both political parties, are resisting the redistricting. Both of them. You haven't heard, for example, Tracy Panton declare that we must the redistricting, redistrict or redivision the vastly imbalanced electoral divisions. We're not hearing it from the opposition, and of course, the party wants to maintain the status quo, even though they mentioned that they're going to do it this term, and we're going to hold them accountable to that. They must.
If you were to hazard a guess as to why they are resisting, What do you think would be the reason? Why wouldn't they want to abide by the Constitution and see this thing properly redistricted? No.
I think it's more of their own narrow political interests, political party interests. They want to maintain their own turf, their own area, their own seat in their small, especially in Belize City, in their small electoral divisions. It's quite often that I use the term city-centric in my writings, just because that's what it is, maintaining the power base in Belize City, even though the rest of the country, other parts of the country, continue to grow. And so if we're to have fair representation, we cannot in any way try to just override the Constitution. I also mentioned the conflict of interest with the past and current Minister of Constitutional Affairs, in which he's trying to nitpick and maneuver ways that misinterpret what is in the Constitution to suit his purpose, rather than just agree. Let us look at this independently, objectively. Let us get another independent body to be able to do all of this objectively. We cannot and we should not have had politicians decide on how the redistricting can be. That is why we have what was supposed to be an independent body, the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, but that body is stacked with political hacks, political fanatics, and therefore it violates the whole intent and the essence of the Constitution to have an objective exercise in which redistricting is not colored or polluted by the narrow interests of politicians. That's what we need to resolve.
A lot of it actually seems to me like a sick joke, Jeremy, because many of the positions that we expect to be objective and impartial are in fact indeed stacked by the political cronies. Let's see what these guys suggest. Why did the OAS certify the elections if they were clearly voter fraud, as Minister Usher pointed out? Has anyone questioned the OAS? That question for you.
Good point. I had a meeting with the OAS Electoral Observer Mission visiting Belize just before election, and I laid it out very strongly. Why would they just, in a way, sanction these kinds of elections that they know but their role is mainly to observe, report, recommend. They have no power over governments to say, well, you cannot do this or you can do this, but they can report it for the rest of the countries and report it for others to see, and then recommend what could be done, which is what they did. They have recommended, though, redistricting since 2012, and they repeated that recommendation in 2015, and even though they have repeated these things, including regulating the finances of political parties, all of these things they repeat in the report, and still nothing has been done. And so the government not only flaunts the Constitution, but they're flaunting their obligations to these international organizations who are also holding them accountable to say, listen, you need to follow your own Constitution. But we have a system where no one cares. In fact, just before election was called, I asked my attorney to write the Governor General to warn that the government was intent on going into election without redistricting, and if that is the case, if she could use the power and integrity of her office to advise that the Constitution is being violated. I wrote to the Speaker of the House, I wrote to the Prime Minister, I wrote to the Elections and Boundaries Commission, we wrote to the Attorney General. All of these bodies, I know, are in some way influenced by the government itself, and so they were powerless to act and they neglected to act, and that is why we had elections, and we are still in the status quo of the vastly imbalanced electoral divisions countrywide. So people are vastly underrepresented in some areas and vastly overrepresented in some areas.
I don't know if the power of these organizations, these international courts even, isn't being tested and pushed to a limit, because the OAS, I remember in one election, the OAS had noted that there was vote buying, that they
Yes.
saw the money being passed. I was out there, the observer was making notes, gave all the recommendation, and nothing was done. We see the CCJ making rulings. We see the ICJ, the highest court in the world, making rulings that are disregarded. So you're exposing now not only a constitutional breach, but a system that obviously is not working. These organizations need some teeth. If they're there, they're being funded, there's money being spent, then why aren't they being listened to when they give these recommendations?
Well, obviously there's an increasing crisis in the rule-based system worldwide.
Yes.
Those with power in whatever form are disregarding ethical standards, rules,
Correct.
and just continuing on their own. And we see that in those institutions that you mentioned. But more concerning back home, we're seeing that here at home. When even the CCJ makes ruling, the government just continues on its own merry way, as if it wants to delay and keep dragging, finding ways not to abide by those rulings. So our rule-based system worldwide
Being
is
tested.
tested.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. We have to find a way, because when there's no order, of course, there's chaos. And the reason for these organizations and these rules, the Constitution even, is that we have some order, and that everybody abides by it and does the same, by by will of the people. Now,
Yes.
um, Jeremy, were you ever involved in politics at all, and how do you respond to a person who say, "Well, you're pushing now the PUP are in. When the UDP was in, you weren't pushing for this so diligently."
Oh yes, I don't think that's a fair comment for those who are saying that, because if they were following my writings in the mandala, I was also pushing when the UDP was there, calling out the United Democratic Party for failing to read the vision. But when I see that the UDP um, neglected to do that, the PUP came in and they promised so much that they would do it. And then when I saw that they were not doing it, I realized both parties were playing games. And that is why I decided this is the time to move beyond writing and speaking and to test them in court. And that is what I did.
I applaud your effort. Let me invite to the show, of course, our co-host, the former Minister of Government, the wealth of experience, if you will, Mr. Joe Cowie. Although we've had a discussion on this very matter, and he kind of take on a lawyer kind of stand on it, pointing out an ambiguity. And Joe, the matter is still hot on the table. Any thoughts on it? Any while you clear your throat there, any updates on your opinions about this?
Well, I think we have to begin from the position that sorry, there is justification for redistricting. Evidently, if it wasn't, I don't see why would I have it in the Constitution. And it is a part of governance of our country. And we understand clearly that the purpose of trying to be as equal as possible has to do with representation. And I think we gave numerical examples to emphasize the importance of redistricting. So I can't think of anyone who will say, why, we don't want it. I think the problem lies, as I said before. I agree that I did mention about amendments that I think needs to be made to remove ambiguities, but we could come back to that. What I find in our case, which is the first time I saw it happening, and that's no excuse for trying to drag their feet on it, is that the two sides seem to have gone against the proposal that came from the election and boundaries. That's what I understand now. No,
They,
the two sides not they did not from, and I think Mr. Jeremy can correct me here. It seems that the proposal went to the subcommittee at the House. And he was there. He seems to have,
faltered.
yeah, simply because it looked like they didn't give the support the two sides, which is not a good way of treating it.
Well, Joe, anytime two sides agree on anything, I get nervous. But go ahead, Jeremy.
But the first we have to see, first the proposal was deeply flawed. Nobody, I guess, in just anybody in their right mind would not want to support that proposal. It was first the Election and Boundaries Commission hired another political party affiliate to do the background studies and to recommend how the redistricting was supposed to be done. When that proposal was sent to the National Assembly, just one look at that proposal said that that was, if I may use the term, pure rubbish. Just because they were just moving one or two seats and still having between 25 to 35% above the average, above the recommended international standard is 10 to 15%. In that proposal, it was between 25 and 35% deviation. All they wanted to do was just take one or two seats, and that did not fall into what the intent and the spirit of the Constitution, and that's why it was rejected. That had to go back, and they ought to have told the Elections and Boundaries Commission, this must be redone, and that is why they couldn't accept it. And so, but they left it there to languish and saying, and then speed on into election when that matter could have been done very objectively and independently before elections were due in November. So it was a failure of the Elections and Boundaries Commission, and it was a failure also of the Ministry of that it was in charge of constitutional affairs.
A waste of money because obviously money was
Total,
budgeted for that, no?
total waste of money for a very a rubbish proposal. So
But how,
frankly, that
how,
is what it was.
how difficult would it be for them to say, listen, we have so many people, so many voters, registered voters. We have 31 constituents. We need to just divide them by 31 and work it out from there. That seems to me like basic elementary school mathematics. It shouldn't be this difficult to do. Somebody raised the point the last time, which made a lot of sense, that even those in the bigger constituencies should recognize that their representative, because if they share out the money into 31 constituencies, their representative have less money per person to use for that constituency. So it would even there would should be saying, standing up and saying, let's do this right so that everybody gets a fair amount of this pie.
Definitely so. And then on top of that, even the access to these area representatives, let's say you have an area representative for Stan Creek West or even Belize Rural North, where in Stan Creek West, for example, that one area representative is in charge of Placencia, Saint Bite, Red Bank, Maya Center, Hopkins, and a whole other list of about 18 villages.
Far apart.
Far apart. So access to seeing that one area representative representing them, of course, would be impossible, as opposed to, let's say, in Mesopotamia, where you have about less than 3,000 voters in a small geographic area.
Fort George, even smaller.
Fort George, having the same resources for a geographic area that is much smaller. That itself is not just because it's unconstitutional, but it is violating every human right on electoral rights. That cannot be accepted. Both
Yeah.
political parties, as I say, even now are complicit to have gone to election maintaining that status quo. And as I said, the leader of the opposition, while they're going into their own challenges with leadership, they have failed to mention that electoral redivisioning should be something that they would support.
Well, now that they didn't want to stop the election because I imagine it was already everything was set and in motion. How now that they have passed that, they're back in office, the current government, are they not at least even discussing it now? Have they anybody contacted you and said, Jeremy, maybe now we can talk about the districting thing now that election is out of the way? That was their excuse, wasn't it? That election had to happen.
Well, they made promises that definitely by the end of next year, and even as much as by the end of this year, redistricting will happen. The Prime Minister made that promise. Definitely, they recognize. Hopefully, they were wrong. I know they knew that even before calling elections. But what is interesting is if you look at the national budget, um, the line that says electoral redivisioning, the budget for that is $0 for this year, for next year, all up to 2028. The budget for redistricting in the national budget that was read recently is zero.
Maybe they believe it can be done for nothing. Or, it brings me back to a Mary Poppins quote where
Yes,
she mentioned of a pie crust promise, easily made, easily broken.
yes.
So we have to wonder, and we've heard promises before, Jeremy. Uh, uh,
Well, I just wanted to read that line item, electoral redistricting, 2054. In 2022 to 23, the budget was for 106,453. And then in the budget for 2023-24 was $3,383.923. And then for 24-25, the budget is 100,000, and then after that is all zero.
hold up, was 100,000 for what? But for
For
the,
fiscal year 24 to
uh,
25. And now we're going into fiscal year 25 to 26, zero.
all right, this is from Mr. Cowie. What is the vetting process to prevent voter fraud, such as multiple individuals using a single address to vote within a constituency? This will continue as a problem with redistricting if not properly addressed. All right, what DJ is saying, even if we get this redistricting, this voter fraud, we see instances where 60, 80, and more people reside at one address. This is not difficult to verify. This is not difficult to go there and say, listen, who really lives here and who doesn't? I can't see it. Why is no effort being made? Joe, that question was for you. Do you have a response?
Yeah, because the oversight for these things obviously come from the political parties. It's the political party who has under the law to go to the court and to make the objections.
So is this one of the problems we have now with an absent opposition, if you will, or at least an opposition in disarray and more concerned about trying to work out their own issues than to attend to the people's business?
No, you say the election on boundaries has an obligation, even with the political party not objecting. So it begins with them. But I'm saying that if the election and boundaries just remain passive after being reported to them, then let the opposition to those registration go to the court. Because they can redress it in the court.
I remember I remember under the last administration when Alberto August was head of elections and boundary. And I think it's the biggest joke because we saw what happened then. He is nothing but UDP. Shouldn't we at least try to be give a semblance of objectivity in assigning people to these positions, man? Like the ombudsman positions that require objectivity. Why are we hesitant to do that, and why do we allow it to happen?
Is
Uh,
that,
go ahead.
is that
Go,
mine?
yeah. Go ahead, Jeremy. I need your input on that.
Well, as I mentioned, that there's a breakdown in our rule-based system. We cannot actually depend on the opposition to also monitor and comply with these systems. You know, there are opposition area representative who also benefited from having people from other electoral divisions go and vote in their divisions. And so while they complain that that is happening with another party, they also do it. So both parties find ways to benefit from it. And so that's a weakness in the system. But I agree with you that we definitely need an independent body with integrity to hold these rules to standard and to make sure that there is compliance. And that's what we need.
I would like to make an objection, Mr. Jeremy, and I'm
Yeah.
doing it in good faith.
Yes.
I think for too long, we seem to want to look at the system and blame the system. The problem to me for my many years in public office, it's not the system is the problem, it's we the people. And I say that firstly because the first level of responsibility begins with the people who we elect. In the event that they fail, then the next level must be through the participatory democracy, we the people. Now, you are an example of what I'm talking about. You felt that what the political director doing was wrong. And you as a citizen choose to seek to right the wrong. Though whether I agree with you on everything you do or not, what I will agree with you fully on, you're a good example of what participatory democracy should be. So we're sitting back and blaming the election and boundaries, blaming a person who was the chairman, and these things are true. But the blaming is not the solution. The solution is when we, the citizens of this country, assert our authority and bring them accountable. So the merits to your efforts, I will reward them in the sense that they are good because you took the initiative. I see some differences which I want to discuss with you and things that you said about the redistricting, but I will come back to that. But I just want to emphasize this. Until when we, who elect you all, and say that you are to accountable to us, and you sit back, and when you are not being accountable, we do not do anything about it. So we can't just be blaming the elected. We have to blame the electors.
We
I,
have to. Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
where I totally concur with you. We're not in disagreement there, but nothing is wrong in calling out those who are failing to do what they're supposed to do, like the Elections and Boundaries Commission, and we still must call them out while we find ways to act objectively to find ways to change that system. We cannot allow people to be appointed to office and they're using their office mainly for narrow political interests and to subvert the entire country because of their failure in their responsibility. So that is one. We name and call out their which is, even if we blame them, yes, because there's a cause and effect. There's a cause and effect cycle. Whatever they do or fail to do is affecting the country. And after we name them, then we act. Now, the problem is that I've found and that we can see is that people are afraid to act, and politicians are using that to their benefit. You see the teachers coming out now. Yes, you see the unions coming out when it is looking after their interest for their salary. But in these bigger issues like the Constitution and challenging the government to abide by it, there seems to be a problem where people step back and just leave it to be, and we continue this downward spiral in our democracy. And I'm saying, in as much as I definitely fully support people fighting for their right compensation and all of that, there are other issues that they can take on to make sure that these politicians are not just breaking the law and getting away with it. The Constitution is the supreme law. And when, for example, when this redistricting case continues over and over, elections after elections, to just fester, the unions are quiet. The Belize network of NGOs, the Bar Association, the Belize National Teachers Union, the publics, they're all quiet and withdrawn from a very important issue that in turn comes back to affect them, because they're at the beginning, they're not holding these people, these politicians to standard. And then the politicians are trying to do what they want. And then when it just touches their salary part, then of course, rightfully they try to address it. But there are other big issues that they can make right for our national development.
I'm glad you brought that up. And yes, indeed, I think what has to happen is that when we see people step out like you, it's a bold stand, then we need to support that, in particular when we see the common sense in what you're trying to do and the objective cause that you're fighting for. But you spoke about the teachers, and I spoke of it last week, that I would have respected more what they were doing if they had come out and said, you know what, this raise by the CEOs is unjust, is uncalled for, it is wrong. Let us rescind that, stop it, roll it back. But they came out and instead said, well, you know what? If you give them a raise, you have to give us our raise. We have a raise that and while they're justified in demanding that, I don't think they should have mixed the issues at all, because you kind of dilute the other one. So they should have come out, and I still think that they should, and that the people, the public should come out and say, this raise, we're not in a position right now. We have the teachers complaining that they have to buy their own stuff for their classrooms and whatnot. You could put something into that. You could expand the whole health services matter. You could look upon an infrastructure of the country. You see many of the streets are deteriorating, or they need some work there. Why not put some money where it can be better used for the benefit of the people, of getting a better quality of life for our citizens? And so that is what I found objectionable. Though I understand the teachers doing it, I admire it. I see the retired public servants, public officers are now coming out. They had a meeting, I believe, at the Battlefield Park. So there's a move on the way that can do it, but I think they'll have to focus what they're trying to accomplish, and even if you go one at a time as opposed to lumping everything together. I don't know. It makes sense.
My suggestion here, gentlemen, is that we need to develop what I would call a citizens' protection right, for example. And it's under that umbrella, you can bring in other civil society members, you can bring in the unions, you can bring in the churches, you can bring in the business community. The country needs to move toward a kind of umbrella group like that. And the reason why is that when an individual right is being violated, and that individual doesn't have the capacity to resist the government, that is not justice, that is not democracy. But what we do is that when they come for you, I didn't do anything. Then they came for the chairman, and I didn't do anything. And then when they came for me, there was no one around. I'm just quoting from what happened in the case of Nazi Germany. So I think the point that Jeremy made is one that should be well taken. Whereas the union look first for what is there, Their responsibility to protect their workers. The truth about it should not be limited to just issues that affect workers. They should join in to issues that is violating any individual right. The justice in a free society is not for the few, and it's not for the many. It must be for all. So when any one individual right is being violated, the rest of us should come to the aid of that person. And that is how you're going to hold the elected accountable. But when you go, for example, I mean, let's take Jeremiah using you as an example. It is easy for some to stay on the sideline and maybe condemning you simply because they are two partisan in the sense that they are not examining objectively the merits or demerits of what you're asking, but simply because the government of the day happen to be the one that they are benefiting from. And here is where the patronage system is becoming so entrenched that public officers are part of the benefit of the patronage system. And I'm not saying all of them. Tonight I listened to the news, and now they are beginning to realize that there are more workers being paid from public funds than are being reported. So when they believe they may have 15,000 people being paid from public funds, it could be 20,000. Now, I would say to the union, yes, presently you're asking for increases in pay, and maybe you think you deserve it. You ask for adjustment of salaries due to the loss of parity of the dollar. And these things may sound good and deserving. But did you ask yourself, do you have the right size public sector? Is it the right size? Do you believe that these amounts we have are being earning what they are being paid? The public sector has become too politicized. So when both sides bring it in, and then they get them entrenched in some cases through the public service commissions, then when the change come, those ones cannot go. So they keep adding and adding. The union should begin to ask itself, whereas we are demanding what we believe is a fair and just adjustment to our income, why don't we also look at see whether we have the right size, whether the merit system is working as it ought to, whether the neutrality of the public sector is working as it should, whether the oversight of the public sector is working as it should. Are we auditing the public accounts as we should? Are we looking at the outturn and the budget to see whether we get results from the money we spend? Why are they not also emphasizing these shortcomings in our society? So
Well,
I have listed some things, and I will come back to the issue of I have some comments to make about that redistricting in terms of the present legislation. But that's my position with democracy. You will never have the kind of, nothing is wrong with democracy. You know. Democracy didn't fail. It's just that we failed to apply it. But it didn't fail. I don't know of any case where democracy failed. The concept and the principles, I don't know of it ever failing. We fail to apply it, and then we say, boy, the democracy failed. It's not the democracy that failed, but we failed to apply it.
well, speaking of redundancy, I do believe the CEO is a good example. I think it's redundant that the public servants were better in that position. I think also, though, that the objection should be against the raise. I have not heard anybody speak favorable about that raise that those CEOs have been given and that the cabinet gave himself. And I think that should be the object of their resistance right now. I mean, let us stop this now, and let us test our will. Let us test what we can do by saying to the government, listen, back up on that. We don't think it's deserved. We don't think it's warranted. We saw this lady getting in trouble on Love FM trying to justify it and come up with some kind of a good excuse why she should be getting what she gets. And I'm saying, how do you put that against what the small man on the street is making? How do you look at the person that's working hard, doing the heavy lifting, and getting very little money and say, oh, I am here as a political animal, Joe? Remember that phrase? Um, that's all they are, political animals. Well, how can they justify sharing the people's money amongst themselves, man? It's wrong. But getting back to the redistricting, you said that you had a few comments to make about that. Let's hear your comment on that, Joe.
I think Jeremy characterized it as rubbish. That is the proposal that they came. And it may be rubbish indeed. And it is rubbish because I feel that even with the best of efforts and the best of objectivity, you could be so wrong. And you are so wrong because I think the legislation is ambiguous. You cited the case of international standards that they use a variation of 10 to 15%, which to me makes sense because you will find that divisions will vary in terms of the density of population, the sparsity of population, the issues of traveling, the environment. So there are so many things that will impact the numbers that you will be able to govern fairly well and need a representative. So once you could take the total amount and divide it by the divisions, that is only a starting point. You could say, well, all right, this theoretically is the average. Now, how do we achieve something? That being the benchmark. That's what you use.
Equal or close to equal.
Right.
Yeah, and then equal as close to equal is so vague. So if you were to amend that aspect of it and said, listen, we want the margin not to be more than 15%.
Jeremy, before he goes on, I have that same response. Why is it vague? How is that vague?
It is vague because if you begin to allow too much subjectivity by using the dynamics of the constituency.
Oh man, you're the run. You're the run. You're the
I
run.
I beg.
I am not, Mr. Chairman. I am not. Trust me, I am very familiar with redistricting.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
No, I am saying to you, I have been in Toledo for 2.5 years in charge of that district. Now, if you look at the sparsity there and how far out they are, now the street has improved. You can reach some of those places by road now. I'm saying to you, compare it with Belize City. You, the representative, can manage, given the ratio of the numbers to the region, you can manage easily maybe 6,000 in a Belize City. But try to see if you could manage 6,000 in Toledo East.
What does Toledo East have, Jeremy?
In terms of numbers, is about over 8,000, I think. But the point is, equal to near as equal establishes that standard, but the Constitution also mentions considerations for geographic location and all of that, geographic and looking at population distribution. All of that is captured in Section 90 of the Constitution. So the equal or near as equal would take into consideration those factors. And so the Constitution gives that leeway for objective thinking, for redistricting, with those factors taken into consideration. So
I differ strongly with you there, Jeremy. I differ there. I don't think it gives objectivity. I think it makes it too subjective. I think they will bring the objectivity, which you rightly said before, if we set what will be the limitations. In other words, you mentioned it earlier, which was, I fully agree with you.
10 to 15%.
International standards use variations of 10 to 15%, don't they?
Yes, 10 to 15% of the...
Somebody, right, I think somebody came before the court and testified to that they use 10 to 15. Now, yes. I was saying, if you introduce that percentage into the law, it removes that subjectivity. It means then you cannot go outside of that.
At the same time, that should not be any reason for violating the Constitution when you have 10,600 and 3,000. That is definitely not equal or near as equal as possible.
Not even there.
No, it is not a justification to violate the Constitution.
Okay.
But it could be a justification to make the numbers appear to be rubbish. For the reason I'm saying to you,
I see what
that you can have some very innocent, honest public officers in election and boundaries and went out and do what they thought was the right thing to do. But because it is too subjective, there are so many that can disagree. Because there is no threshold, there is nothing, no guide rail.
In this case, it was not an honest exercise. It was a political party person who went out to do the work and still did not come out to equal to near as equal. It was so vastly distorted that it didn't even come close. And so there was no good intent, in my view, and the result was a rubbish proposal, and that is why it had to be rejected.
Let's follow up on that, Jeremy. I'd like to follow up on it.
Yeah.
You are saying strongly that it was partisan.
Yes.
No. Which party you think was behind it to benefit from it? The party in government or the opposition?
The party in government, the person was a former senator, former campaigner for the party in government, and he was sent out to do as the consultant to do the work. Yes.
I know the individual personally. No.
Yes.
Let's assume that there was in fact a partisan bias. Is it not normal that when there's a partisan bias, the other side would not object or object?
What other side?
I'm saying to you, listen to me good. I saw this happen before in redistricting right in Belize City. No, it happened. No. If one side did it to favor that side, then that side would not object to it. You would not. The other side is the one who would object. So when it becomes partisan, what will happen when it goes before the House? The party will support it, and therefore it goes through. But
neither of them supported it. This is what you're saying.
That's right. That's my
all right. So obviously it's rubbish.
Because it was so rubbish, and so that is why
the two sides oppose it.
That is why the status quo remain.
No, but the point, Jeremy, you're not. Let me see if I could come back to the logic that I'm trying to make. I don't think that because you assume, well, not assume, you said it quite strongly, that it was very partisan. So how come the partisan product was not supported by the partisan majority?
Because it could be very intentional to keep the status quo going. I spoke with one of the members of the commission who recognized that proposal was really not up to standard, but they tried to push it through anyway, and I think there was an intent behind that for the status quo to remain.
I strongly disagree on that.
Otherwise, they could have sent that back to say, listen, this is rubbish. Please, we have to get this right this time, if that was the intent of the party.
Right. Let me give you something that I know happened.
Yeah.
And it's nothing new, except that I'm saying it to you now. Whenever you see redistricting is taking place, 9 out of 10 times, the party in government will have its way. And what they do, they have a caucus with the election and boundaries head. And they express to them the concept and what they want to see happen. So when they come with it, it goes through. We have to ask ourselves, why is it that this one didn't go through? Why is it that the two sides rejected it? Because I believe that in this case, there was not a caucus. And when it came, if there was a caucus, they would have been able to resolve their differences there. But because the caucus was not there, you had people of the same party, because they felt that their division was putting, the redistricting was putting their electoral chances at risk.
Either that, or as Jeremy suggested, they didn't want it to go through. They knew it was not going to pass.
But Mr. Chairman, that one, I cannot see the logic to that. I don't see any plausible explanation for that. I can't see how you would have set out and tell the election and boundaries, do rubbish because we don't want it to go through. I
Uh-huh.
don't agree with that. That's too real.
In politics, you're saying you would not that would not happen in politics.
I am saying to you, there is an extent to which you can be dealing with that kind of extremities of thinking. Why is it that you will tell, you will have the say over the election and boundaries? Let's not face it. The election and boundaries, whence any any entity, any
Right.
agency of government that is
Right.
appointed by the political directorate, it is very difficult to be so non-partisan. They will.
Yeah.
Now, what has happened? There were times when the person was in fact favoring the party in government, but they were more upright and responsible. So you'll find that many of the speakers at the House, for example, in the past, were respectable speakers from both sides. But when we begin to get members now so partisan in a very raw way, blatant, simply because of their self-centeredness and the benefit of the office, then is when they lose all sense of rationality and reasoning. I cannot see why the party in the majority would have set out to tell the election and boundaries, do it this way so that we can reject it because we don't want to do it. That to me is going too far.
I want to mention something that you alluded to earlier in our weakening democracy, where political parties looking at their own interests. We have an elections and boundaries commission with 3 members of the ruling party and 2 from the opposition. There is no objectivity that could be expected from that, and you agreed that they're going to caucus with their party to try to get the outcome that they want. That in itself compromises the whole system. I think the entire redistricting process must be taken out of the hands of both political parties and must be given to independent bodies, even if it is like Statistical Institute of Belize or University of Belize, to ensure the integrity of the system. We cannot have politicians meddling with finding ways to gerrymander these constitutions, these constituencies to their own benefit. And so that is part of the weakness of the system. And that is how we are compromised. If we're having politicians every time deciding, then we are having the same status quo because they're not ready for the kind of change that abiding by the Constitution ought to result in.
Joe, has any thought been ever given to that? Because that's an excellent idea. Maybe the university, students from the university work at the with the electoral board as opposed to political appointees.
No, I think what we are doing right now, you know what we are doing? We are subverting democracy. And what we are doing unconsciously is to ask for totalitarianism. And let me tell you why, and I'm serious about it. Let me tell you why. We have to stop the belief that in our democracy, by the people, for the people, and of the people, that once we elect you to represent us, you can't turn around and straitjacket you. Otherwise, you cannot govern. What is happening? All the failures in public sector reform, as the University of Manchester research proved, it is not a problem with the systems, it is the mindset. And if you cannot transform the mindset, then you cannot have democracy. And that was what Socrates emphasized, and I keep saying it. So you can't be saying, boy, let somebody else appoint these people. Who will do it? You cannot say that we go to...
No. We're not saying let somebody else appoint them. We're saying let the political parties appoint objective thinkers. Not that they're gonna appoint anybody. No, you mentioned a word straitjacket. Where does it cross from accountability to straitjacket?
What I'm saying to you, when I said straitjacket, you see what you said just now? You said let them appoint people who are objective honest and upright. I think that's what you said, right? In other words.
But
But
that's what we would hope for, yes.
no, that is what they should be doing.
Yes.
That is what they should be doing.
Yes.
But what I'm saying to you, that when you are dealing, because in a democracy, you cannot stop the people who elect these people to appoint these bodies to let the government function. Now, when you have a society where it's hard to find people offering themselves to public office who are not men and women of integrity as it once was, therefore, what you are doing, you are weakening what could have been democracy. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I saw what happened. Well, let's take away the Public Service Commission. Let's take away the Services Commission. Let's take away the Judicial Commission. Let that the politician appoint the judges. The minute you begin to do these things, then you don't want democracy. What you want is a totalitarianism.
I don't fully agree with that. Just because
Why you don't?
there ought to be standards set to appoint these people for their various positions, and these very rigorous standards, rather than as we have it, a politician who comes from a political party that is not registered, has no financial accountability and all of those things. They could pick members of their own party and put them into the various things as a reward for political support. And if there is not rules to say, well, listen, these are the qualifications, qualities of the persons we need, and remind these persons the national interest before political party interest. All of those things is what we should be fighting for. But what we're having is that these bodies are often stuck with political appointees.
Jeremy, it's not only from the political parties, it's from their families.
Even from
their
yes.
immediate families.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Jeremy, I need to come in strongly on this one. I must. Let me tell you why. Every democracy, every one of them, you have what you call political appointments, and then you have the non-political appointments. Your non-political appointments is what we call the permanent public sector. They are non-political appointments. Then you have your political appointments. We got an example where they happen right now in the United States. You have those federal employees appointed by the political director, the president. What Trump set out to do is to change the schedule of those who cannot be appointed by the political director and make them appointed by the president. Because we know that you have to have political appointments. No.
But not in every position, man.
You have to have political appointments.
Not in every position. You cross the line.
Mr. Chairman, I am not saying in every position. That is not what I am saying. I am saying a public sector. Every public sector in every democratic society in this world will have the permanent public sector, which is supposed to be neutral and non-partisan.
That's what we're talking about.
That's a fact. No, you also have a breed, which are the political appointments. They are what you call the political animals. They are there to serve the party of the day. They come and go with the party. So when you have appointments like the Election and Boundaries Commission, like when you have the Public Accounts Committee, which has changed, which is good, you will have this happening because you cannot say that the political directorate cannot appoint anybody. That's nonsense.
But nobody's saying that.
That's not what we're saying.
Nobody's saying that, Joe. Nobody's saying that.
Tell me what we are saying there.
We're saying that bodies like the Electoral Committee should not be politically appointed. The political animals should not be in those bodies.
Mr. Chairman, then let us say that, listen, we want certain bodies only to be political appointments. Then we can talk about that. So if you say, listen, let's look at the whole structure of the Constitution, which is what we are doing through now. Then it is there now you begin to say where you want your political appointments and where you don't want them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right? We're not.
If you say that the Election and Boundaries Commission must be free from political appointments, suggest to me who will appoint them.
I think we're confusing political appointment with the nature of the appointment, rather than having it stacked with political party fanatics. Have it filled with people who are objective from, let's say, from the private sector, from the university, from various bodies, to ensure the integrity and independence of that body. That is what we're saying.
Mr. Jeremy, let me see if I could circumscribe that for you.
Yes.
You can say the majority party in the government, whether the PUP or UDP, can appoint 5 members. The opposition can appoint 3 members.
Oh, we're back to.
No, hold on, man. Yes, you can finish.
Sorry about that.
No. If you take it the next step and you said, no, listen, the 5 that you can appoint, you will qualify now the qualifications. If you can do that, and you say, all right, of the 5 that you can appoint, 1 must come from the university, whether you want to be one administrator or one professor. You can circumscribe these things. You can say 1 must be from the accountancy profession. You will say 1 can be from the bar association. And that is happening in some of these agencies. They do. No. When you go now to appoint the 1 from the university, you know what you will do? You will look for somebody who you think is supportive of your party.
Why would you do that?
Because the reality, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you go before the court, you will never be a witness for your mother. Because
Joe, you see how you do that? Because you know what?
I am doing it the way human beings are expected to behave.
I think another thing you're confusing is who's doing the appointing and who's appointed. Because we're not saying that the political parties can't appoint people, but they don't have to be so partisan in those appointments. And you're saying that you will naturally do it because that is what we expect. So that's what we did.
Mr. Chairman, what you are missing, the important point, and I must say, Mr. Jeremy, is too. The minute there are political appointments, that is why there are political appointments. Because
why do they have to be political appointments?
Oh my God. I'm saying that whenever you come to the point where you agree by the Constitution that this agency of government will be by political appointment, and then you attempt to circumscribe the qualification that this one must come from a university, that one, I am saying to you, at the end of the day, it is political appointment. And if it's a political appointment and you are a PUP government, you don't want to appoint one UDP.
Why are you saying
nonsense?
But why don't you answer the simple question? Why does it have to be a political appointment?
It doesn't have to be. I am saying.
Let's look at that then.
That's what I'm telling you. Let's look at. That's what I'm asking you. Look at the Constitution. Where are the political appointments? No, they are there. If you say in the reform of the Constitution, we don't want these political appointments, then go forward and say that. But if there are political appointments, then
don't you think that the Elections and Boundaries Committee should be non-political appointments? Don't you think? And are you saying it's not possible to do
what
that?
you are doing now, you want us to discuss the Constitution, then let's do it. No,
well, that's what we've been doing all show.
Hold on, you're asking me if I would like the Election and Boundaries Commission.
No. I'm not asking if you like it. Obviously, you probably would not like it. I'm asking if don't you think it's possible for that to be a non-political appointment?
It's possible.
All right. Well, that's it. I mean,
if the people want it, it's possible.
All right. But
if the people don't want it, then it won't happen.
All right.
But there must be political appointments in every democratic society. There must be.
Why would you? Let me ask you the simple question. Why must there be?
Because, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
One public sector is what we need to maybe have a discussion on. The majority of our people in this country, including many public officers, do not even know how our public sector functions. They don't. The public sector in Belize right now is so subverted. It is so much patronized that is not what the public sector is supposed to be. The public sector has to have the majority must be non-partisan in the sense that they have to be neutral.
let me say, Joe.
Hold on, I just finish. They do not change with the change of a government. They remain to serve any government that comes to power. Then you have another group of public officers who have political appointments. They come and go with the party of the day. That's all I'm saying.
You know, and funny thing, because you spend a lot of time and maybe it's because I'm getting old, I can't retain thoughts as long as I used to. But as long time you do that, and I'm not able to get in a point at a key moment, then it's lost. But I'm saying to you, you're describing most of the time what is. I'm trying to suggest to you that there can be another way. There has to be another way, because what is not working. And that's my point.
But Mr. Chairman, let us discuss that. We can discuss this is the way it is. Then you can say, well, all right, the way
What
it is.
ought to be.
No, hold on. The way it is must be the way the Constitution has it. Then you can say, but you know something? They're not complying with the Constitution. Then you have to find out, how they want to comply. Then you can say, listen, I don't think that the way it is good for us. So we need to change the Constitution. That's why we are looking to reform it.
But you contradict yourself.
What I think as a problem, Mr. Chairman, in public discussions, and I'm saying
you contradict yourself.
No, I have been in the public service for 40 years.
That doesn't matter, Joe.
It does.
What does that have? How
It
does
does.
that?
You know why? Because when you're talking with somebody who does not have the proper insight into how a public sector function, that is where you have a problem having a discussion with it. I am saying to you simple, that you do have the majority of the public sector that must be permanent and neutral. And then you have a small amount which must be political appointments. That's all I'm saying.
But is that what's happening now? Does that happen the way you describe it?
It is right.
So why is it not working? What is the problem?
Well, that's what we have to look at though.
Because first of all, you said
that the Constitution failed or we fail to comply with it. That are the things we could discuss.
But as we mentioned, as you mentioned before, there's also the failure of parties to abide by the Constitution, and that continues, and that subjugates the system that we have. I agree with you that there are the political appointment and there are the permanent appointment. What we were saying tonight is that the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, as a political appointed body, has failed the system, and we're suffering from the failure of that system because it is a political. Maybe it ought to move to a permanent appointment or a body that is independent with professionals there rather than what it is. So we're looking at that to say that in some cases the political appointments have failed, and it is not because of the system, but it is the mindset that also needs to change, as you also mentioned.
There are two ways things can be done. There's is and there's ought to be. We spend a lot of time dealing with what is, and we refuse to look at what ought to be, because many times we put in the way the obstacle of saying, oh, well, it's not like, it's never been done like that. It can't be done like that. And you, Joe, I hear you saying a lot, this is how it's done and it has to be done like this. I don't see that it has to be done like that. Then we just throw up our hands and resign. This is how it is. We can't do nothing about it. Are we going to try to do something about it, or aren't we?
So, Chairman, I hope that will be some of the discussions we can have with men like Jeremy and others. But when we come to the table, we say this is the topic. We want to discuss the public sector as it is and the way we think it ought to be. Now, I don't want to be sounding a little bit too arrogant of myself, but I have been a member of the Reform for Public Sector for the whole CARICOM countries. And we work along with the Commonwealth Association for reform for all the Commonwealth countries.
Careful.
So, hold on, when I speak to you about public sector, it's not that because I just want to be sounding intellectual.
No. But careful, because you will seem now to be a part of the problem. You will present yourself as a part, because if you have been there so long, doing so much,
a part of the problem is that when we want to discuss about auto mechanic, don't let the doctor lead the conversation. Leave it to the auto mechanic.
Yeah, well, if the car isn't running, if the car isn't running, then maybe you need to change the mechanic. Or give the doctor a chance. He might be able to do it.
Well, that's what I believe you may want to do, and that is what would make it worse.
Anyway, let's move on. Jeremy, we talk about the budget because you mentioned the budget and light him in there. We're I was listening to a discussion this morning on one of the shows, and they were suggesting that every year you hear something budgeted, an amount budgeted for a particular project, and then next year the same project gets money allotted for it also. Joe, who polices this, Joe? Who polices something like that?
Well, here again, if you look at the Constitution, the section on finance, it is telling you that the national budget must be audited.
Uh-huh.
And then the Finance and Audit Reform Act, the provisional law, give effect to the Constitution that tell you exactly when it is to be audited and what time. Now, these are the kind of things, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Jeremy, that shows how backward we are as a democracy. When last was the national accounts ever audited in this country? When last? When the law is saying by the year ends in March, by 3 months after, by the end of June, it should be with the accountant general to be turned over to the auditor general, and by the end of September, it should be tabled in the House. Every year that should be done. When last was it done?
Now,
Now, I ask a question. When last was it done? Can you ask me a question and I want to answer it? That is the oversight. That is the number one, the most important oversight. There are many other oversights. We have thousands of them.
Yeah.
is that one of those? Is that one of those political appointed positions?
No, the auditor general is not to be blamed. The
But
public-
it should not be political appointed. But you're saying that if you go to appoint somebody like that, naturally you will appoint somebody that's loyal to your party. Correct?
You know why I believe that breakdown came? That breakdown came because of when we remove the permanency of the public sector by removing the permanent secretary, when we begin to have some members of agencies of government, departments, people appointed to them without qualifications.
And those,
When
those,
we begin to have breakdown
yeah.
of the people in the Public Service Commission who was so abusive of appointing people through the commission and take them to these departments to work. This to me is not the failure of the Constitution. It's a failure to comply with it. So therefore, you ask the question is that if we were complying with the oversight that the Constitution requires and the Finance and Audit Reform Act, the Transparency and Accountability Act, the standard orders, the financial orders, these are hundreds and hundreds of regulations that were there to make sure that these funds are accounted for. And if these are not happening, then there is no credibility to the outturn of the budget.
So would you say, Joe, that this breakdown occurred because of political appointments and political maneuverings within the system and not holding people accountable?
Jeremy, I am saying that the ministers, the executive, is to be blamed. I am saying the legislature is to be blamed. Why? It begins with the legislators. They make the laws, and then the executive arm implement those laws through the Appropriation Act. Now, the Constitution gives the minister, and the spell it out in detail, it gives him direction and control over the departments under his portfolio, which means that the accounts are not to be not audited. It's the minister to be blamed.
Let me read this for you. One second, Jeremy. Steve says, Joe, this is directed at you. First and foremost, we don't have a non-political judicial branch. Jeremy's case provided this. We need to strengthen the courts as a true independent branch, vetted by the people and elected by a robust, redistricted cabinet that represent the current population, which is what Jeremy's case is about, actually. What do you say to that?
You asking me?
Yeah, did you get
Well,
the point?
Yeah, presently, as far as I remember it, you have the Judicial Commission, where judges and so are appointed. And under that, if I remember it well, it is the Prime Minister, and I think it needs the approval or the concurrence of the leader of the opposition in appointing these judges. So there are some appointments, as I was citing the earlier. Those are what I would call the political appointments. Now, if you say, by we want to change the constitution, then let's go now for a period. I would say, you want to elect them? Some countries elect them. So those are the things we need to ask ourselves. If we feel like these political appointees, these ones that the government, that the politicians are now appointing, like judges, and we don't want that to be done, then this is the time for us to come forward and change the constitution to say how they will be appointed.
Speaking of that, Jeremy, there's a committee in place, political reform, the Constitutional Reform Committee. Are they sincere? I know they've spent a lot of money already and was asking for more. Is that gonna just sit there and die?
I don't know what the progress of that. I haven't even heard what is the progress of their work. And it seemed to be delaying, and it kept pushing back. But I'm not certain what it's going to lead to. But somehow I believe that they should keep the people informed about the progress of their work and what their deadlines are to complete the work. We're
And,
not
and
doing that.
yeah, I don't know what are some of the issues even that they're thinking about changing or addressing. And if we're not careful, we're wind back right where we are, having spent a lot of money and accomplishing absolutely nothing. Joe, do you know anything about any updates on that and what the
I
reform
think
is?
firstly we have to, again, there was a piece of legislation that was passed to carry out the reform of what they call the Commission for the Reform of the Constitution. And that is what we have to look at to see if it's being followed. To the best of my knowledge, it is being followed. I understand now they're about to wrap it up. And remember, there is a procedure. Once they finish it and they present it to the political directorate, then it will come down to an issue of a referendum. So I don't see where they may be not complying. But again, I don't know. As far as I know, they are looking to wrap it up.
Interesting. I am hoping that we not just then give us something that nobody understands either, and changes that are just superficial, because you know that could happen. I would hope they will justify whatever monies have been spent on it, and we come out of this winning, no? Uh,
Well, you know, fill in terms of reference.
what were the terms of reference?
They were to go around and to hear the views of the society at large. And they had to capture those proposals that came to them. And that is what will go forward. And in the end, we expect that there may be a referendum to vote on what is it that we want.
So they move forward on a consensus then from
Yeah,
an
that's what I
electorate that is obviously not very educated at all in these matters.
Well, here we go again, Mr. Chairman. The survey that was done by the same commission, which was for the first time I think it was ever done, he said about 90% of the people don't even know the Constitution.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, the question again, you see how we're going into some muddy waters again? Who is to be blamed?
The educational system.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right. That's your opinion.
Yeah.
We can't be blaming the educational system.
Shouldn't it be taught in the schools? Isn't there a subject called civic? There
Mr.
was one when
Chairman,
I was in school.
there are certain things that will be taught in school, but education is for life. Education doesn't end when you graduate from a school.
No, but the
But-
Constitution is not that big a document.
So I am saying to you, I wasn't taught the Constitution in school, but I read it. And I never had to be taught it in school.
Right.
So why is it that I don't have a problem for it to go into civic. But what I have a problem with is that we tend to always wanting to find someone else to blame, when in fact, you get your formal education, you learn your reading, writing, and arithmetic. Maybe you should have gotten some courses in critical thinking, some courses in honesty and integrity. But I can't teach you everything. You have to take it on your own now to go out and seek knowledge.
Yeah, That doesn't happen by itself too, though. There has to be, so if 90% of persons are not even familiar with the Constitution, we cannot just turn around and say, well, it's up to them to go and read it.
Correct.
There
Correct.
has to be a very systematic, a very intentional approach, whether through the public media, um, every day doing some presentations, or through the schools, but to just say, well, it's up to people to read because I read it and stuff. There has to be an intentional, deliberate intervention when these things are failing. And so, how do we expect people to contribute to a discussion about constitutional reform when they do not even know what is in the Constitution?
But Mr. Jeremy, your suggestion, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
But I don't see that the reason why we should not do it on our own also.
Yeah, well, combined with that, but in the tendency right now, people are not even reading newspapers. People are not.
If I want to know about the American Constitution, then I get a copy of it. I have one right here that I got because I want to know about it.
But on the flip side,
if I want to know about what the president of the United States is doing with tariff, then I go to the news.
Yes, but that is
we have phones. We can go to the news and get information, but we don't want to.
Yeah, I know. But given that we don't want to, on the flip side, we can say, if I'm a leader of the country and I want more people to know about the Constitution, then there has to be some intentional, deliberate approaches also. So there will be those people who are minorities who will want to learn about it and will take it on their own initiative. But the reality is that most won't. And so there has to be some deliberate.
When you want to tell me that you will spoon feed the child until he becomes a man, then to me, your children will never shed their diaper.
The fact is 90% do not know.
To me, it's telling us. What is that telling us?
That there's no interest in learning it, or that people are not.
I am not going to blame the politicians for that.
No, we're not. But we're trying to find.
We, the people, must be blamed for that.
As is for so many others.
How many have we gone to university? How many have we gone to secondary school? How many have we got associate degree? And you are telling me having an associate degree should not in itself generate the interest in you to know about your Constitution?
The fact is that is the reality right now.
But it is a reality that is unacceptable.
It is unacceptable, but still,
we must blame ourselves for it.
Yes, all of that, but still, how do we change that mindset? And a mindset does not just change by itself. There ought to be some interventions, at least to start a process where people learn the Constitution. If we're faced with that problem, we cannot just go back and say it is unacceptable. Yes, we understand that this is the status quo, but it will not change by itself. That's my point.
I'm seeing somebody says here that blame falls on both schools and government. The larger responsibility is with the government to inform all the public and all political on all political and memorial events. Well, I imagine a part of the whole educational process. But Joe, do you think the educational process should be just for reading, writing, and arithmetic?
No. I think it should go beyond that. And I think some of the greatest educators, I forget his name, but his book is right behind me. The one that reformed the Finland system, the one that reformed that university in the United States. And he's showing you that it's not just about reading, writing, and arithmetic, which of course give you knowledge. But for you to be able to use knowledge, you have to be intelligent to apply knowledge. But then for you to apply it intelligently, there must be a spiritual dimension to man. And that spiritual dimension I'm speaking of doesn't have to be about religion. The spiritual dimension is that the knowledge you have and the intelligence you apply must be done for the benefit of the collective good.
Stick a pin, Joe. Let me see
what should be in the system of education.
Hold up. Stick a pin in there. Let me see what this gentleman, because they put it up and I want to understand where they say it believes a discernible phenomenon exists in which political candidates and figures such as Jeremy Enriquez are disengaged from mainstream political discourse while promoting their respective causes and affiliations. I don't know if you follow that, Jeremy. Presently, several political parties are working to enhance awareness regarding redistricting issues and redistribution of electoral constituencies. Nevertheless, there's a notable absence of cooperation among these parties to address this matter unified. The trend is increasing. Um, do you agree? Do you get what he's saying, and do you agree or disagree? Because he did mention you by name, Jeremy.
Well, I think the point to have a unified approach to addressing these issues is well taken. Instead of dealing with these issues in silos, this party's interest and this party's interest, where do we meet common ground, and where do we um, consolidate efforts towards achieving profound changes in our national development, rather than just looking at opposition to several issues? Where can we find common ground to build on for national development? So that point is well taken.
The issues now that he's speaking of, particular issues that we address, and how do we determine which one is worth a unified effort and which ones are basically just personal and subjective, no?
That will come through consistent dialogue to, to define what are those issues that we could agree on and push forward. So that will take a lot of dialogue. I want to go back a little bit also to what Joe mentioned earlier, the deteriorating public service, just with not having an audit as is required, all of this breakdown. And I wanted to hear more from him from his experience. How does he propose that those things could be changed? And it points out, and you also point out that ministers are involved in that deterioration who are from the political directorate. How then can that be changed?
I would have first hoped that the process that we started with the Public Accounts Committee, when I sat on it, we had a very good cooperation between the two parties. And I must give credit to the then opposition because the PUP was the majority. And we worked very good together. I will give credit also to the then Prime Minister Musa because we brought before the Commission the Accountant General, we brought the Auditor General, and the two sides were very passionate and enthusiastic about bringing an end to this absence of the proper auditing. And then I took the proposal to the Prime Minister, Mr. Musa, and he made the effort to indeed get to all the CEOs and the permanent secretaries to ensure that they begin to comply. And we begin to come up to date. We were catching up. It's unfortunate. And here again, with the sounding partisan, but the evidence is there. The change came in 2008. We had gone pretty far in restoring the public trust, in restoring the public funds. And we got credit from the World Bank. We got credit from ECLAC. We got credit from the Inter-American Development Bank. They all gave us a lot of credit. And then it began to slip back. And now today, I understand we are 7 years behind. So, here is a case, gentlemen, that it should have begun with indeed. One, the legislature holds over the executive, but seeing that they're the same thing, you will not have that. Therefore, it was the executive who should have made the effort to make sure it gets done. Now, if they too fail, here is where the participation of the people comes in. And I will say this, and whosoever is out there feels any different about it, I strongly feel, and I had made the threat before, but it was not a threat so much. If you begin to feel like the elected, any government is not complying with certain things, for example, the very audit, I think we can, through civil disobedience, withhold our money and put it into an escrow. And I think if we go to court, we will win the case. If the Constitution is saying for you to be accountable for the money we are putting into your hands, these are what you should do. And if you didn't do it, and I decide to withhold it, I'm not going to spend it. I'm going to put it into an escrow account so that it will be understood that I have no intention of not paying it. But I'm not going to pay to you until when you do what the Constitution says you ought to do. I think that is civil disobedience quite within the law.
You're talking about taxes.
Yeah. And you say, well, I exhausted the trial. I'll show you where the legislature maybe failed. If the executive failed, then the people must act.
Where do we stand, Joe, on the declaration of assets, where these representatives are supposed to declare their assets? Because we see some going in poor and coming out rich. If they were declaring their assets, they might be having to explain a few things, don't you think?
Yeah, I was refrain from generalizing on that matter because I do know, again, I know from both sides, but I know the PUPs more because I have been there with them. And I will say this, I have a lot of trust in many of them. I'm not saying it all. And I think they have been declaring their assets. But I would insist that everyone must do it. And if it isn't being done, again, that's a violation. But to suggest that I see people going in poor and coming out rich, no, I think that's too extreme.
You have not seen any.
No, I think to make such a statement,
No. You have not seen any.
I don't have the evidence to support that.
I see. Okay.
That's for a perception that
Yeah, man. It is a perception, yeah. Okay. Joe, really, the budget it's read, but now we go to the debate, correct? What do you look for in the House now, given that? And I'll say this: I think the two strongest voices have been removed, which was Patrick Farber and Shine. They were both vocal, at least. Whether the things they were saying was enough is a different matter. But what do you see now as far as the debate in the House, and will the opposition be able to hold its own?
I would expect that when it comes to giving a critique of a budget, it's not the numbers that will give credibility. It's the quality of those who are willing to do the critique. It could be 2 persons, 3 persons. What I sense is happening, and I don't understand why. Because in Belize, we have many qualified people to be able to critique that budget, and who I believe would offer themselves to either side, not in a partisan way, but in a professional sense. But somehow to me, they seem to want to go and do their own critique, only to find out that it is too partisan a critique. So the critique loses objectivity. And I'm saying this why. I listened to one, and I must give credit to one member of the opposition, citing the ratio of the capital accounts to the recurrent. And I thought that was a good point. We have to ask ourselves if the ratio of that capital is not too high in relation to the current, for the reason that are we putting enough into the areas of human resource development, which is very much in education and health. Now, the budget has been increasing. I saw a lot of good points in the budget, successes, but I saw a lot of things too that I believe could be better. So I would think that the opposition, any budget, none of them, right now I'm saying in reaching anywhere around 80-90% of performance. I don't think we are there yet. You can say, boy, if you look on the macro figures, all right, what are the macro figures? Boy, the GDP look good, 8% last year. Boy, the debt has gone down. Look where we are at 60% of the debt. Boy, the primary surplus went up. The overall deficit went down. The balance of payment and the recurring side looking good. And all these things look good. Now, there is something added now to the budget this year. Because there is some institution which maybe have some credibility is doing happy index. You know, you hear about the happy index. Mm-hmm. It's like what they used to do, what they call the Human Development Index. And you're saying that of the 190 odd countries, Belize ranked 24th. No, that made me smile too. So you are saying that after and within the region we rank four. That is very commendable for police to know
Who
that
who
among
who make who makes that assessment? Who
that is
does that?
done by a body, an international body. It is in the budget speech. It was mentioned. So when you look at things that you can say good about the budget, of course, but no, the people who are on the other side is expected now to try to be as objective and professional to show where it may be good, but it could have been better. But don't go and condemn it and say, oh no, it's nothing good about it. Nothing is wrong in admitting that it is not bad, but it could have been better. Because that's what you're doing. You made what? You made 75, you passed. But you could have done better. Maybe you could have made 80.
Joe, is the budget presentation an honest exercise? Do you believe that we're getting the truth? Do they bloat some of these figures? Does somebody really?
I have
I asked before, police that?
I have no reason to believe that anybody is tampering with it. But I believe it open that if they were doing the audit, I would have no reasons without it.
Right.
So there comes the question. Because the audit is not being done, it opens the door for suspicion. It is the audit that have you see the accounts, the national accounts is the responsibility of the public sector with the minister at the top. So the audit is only to give credibility to it. That's what the audit is to do. So when the audit finishes and it finds nothing materially wrong with it, then it gets a pass.
Let
But
me,
when
let me
it's not, but when it's not being done, then it leaves it in the air to say that we don't know.
Yeah, Jerome, put that back up again because I do respect the opinions of Jerome. Jerome Sean is saying earlier, Steve commented that nearly all Americans know the preamble and Bill of Rights. Today, the issue of birthright citizenship is in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. It's rare when something like the dual citizen issue or Mayan land rights case is in front and center and provide an opportunity for Belizeans to learn more about the Belizean Constitution. Well, I think we're all in agreement that we need to know more about and this is what Steve was saying. Nearly all Americans know the preamble and Bill of Rights. Belizeans should have at a minimum that level of knowledge of their document of independence. I don't know
I agree with
if
you.
that. I don't know that I agree with that. All Americans know the preamble and Bill of Rights. I don't agree with that. But
Okay.
I guess
The question I would have then is, how did that happen that nearly all Americans know the preamble and Bill of Rights? Was that
like
just on their own, or was there a deliberate way in which that happened within the schools or whatever?
it's taught in the schools. I'll tell you that much because I was taught that in the schools. Yeah,
Right.
and that's why I keep saying it should be taught in our schools.
Yes.
Standard 4, Standard 5, they should have an introduction to the Constitution. The Constitution is not a very big document.
Right.
It would not take, and even if they only go to the key points, because there are certain areas that they don't have to, they can read on their own. But there are certain key areas, the Bill of Rights, they must know what their rights are. They must know what's legal and what isn't legal, what the rule of law is like. It's not that difficult and it's not rocket science.
I think we could learn and learn from that and apply it in Belize. As I said, it can't be just left up to the citizen to just.
And yeah, this is where I agree with you, and I think
I
I hear Joe, but I don't know that
I
I
agree
agree
with
fully.
Mr. Trump. Mr. Steve Trump is saying, and I think the first part may be true. I can't speak for the first part with America. I know the American Constitution is small. I have one right up here. Small. You could read that. It's smaller than ours. But he said that Belizeans should have at a minimum that level of knowledge of their document of independence. And I agree with him.
Yep.
They should.
Definitely, we agree. The question was just how to make that happen. So,
Well, it should happen on our own initiative once we have gotten up to a formal level of education. That was the education we got at the formal level. Education never ends.
in addition to that, then we could also implement some of that in schools, is what we're saying. In addition,
Yeah, I think that's what I am saying. I hear you. Everything in life, we have to put our own effort too. And we have to do our share in making it happen. I agree with that. I understand that. But what then is the education for? Because the children in school, well, now I don't know how, because every minute they got holiday, every minute there's some reason why they're not in school, but they're in school, what, 6 hours a day? Give me a break. We could take 15 minutes out of that for a lesson on the Constitution. Um, of course, that would require for the teachers to know that. So maybe in teachers' college, they have to have that also. They should have just thorough knowledge of the Constitution in the profession that they have adopted. No, but
Mr. Chairman, would you say that a graduate, let's say at high school level with a diploma,
right,
he's already 18, so he goes to register to vote.
right,
He votes,
right.
but he doesn't know the Constitution.
Well, what are you saying? Are
What
you
I'm
asking
saying,
me if he should or
so what
because
I'm saying is that when you look at the era representative of the people act, where for him to be able to vote, he have to be 18 years old. You have to be a Belizean, and you have to be of a strong mind. But you don't have to go on associate degree. But at that age of 18, and the 18 is what is important, it is expected that most people at the age of 18 becomes an adult. You are no longer having a diaper. And when you reach the age of 18 as an adult, there are certain things that you need not have to be told to do. You should want to do them. So if you say, boy, I want to go and vote, so I'm going to register, you should try to ask yourself, well, how do I decide who I'm going to vote for? Rather than saying, my mother PUP, or my father NIP, or UDP, so I'm going to vote. 18 years old shouldn't be thinking like that.
this is a critical thinking.
This is
Yes,
critical thinking.
but maybe then we should make it mandatory that they have some knowledge of the Constitution. How about that?
No, what I'm trying to get over, that I have no problem if it is to be taught in school.
Right.
But if we begin to ask ourselves, what is it that we are to be taught in school?
The Constitution.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You are singling out the Constitution. I can name many other things that somebody else would say should be taught in school.
Okay, we have 6
So-
hours a day to do it.
Why? But no, what I'm saying is that your formal education ends at a certain time. Most of us want to become professional students, and we want to just stay at universities. We get 3, 4 masters, PhDs
Uh-huh.
to become professional students.
Uh-huh.
What I am saying
Uh-huh.
that once we have reached up to like a diploma or an associate degree,
Uh-huh.
our education doesn't end.
No, Joe, but that's not the argument. There's no argument on
I am
that.
not
We
making
know
a-
that.
I am not making an argument.
I am. The argument I am
I
making
am
is
stating a
that,
position that there are certain things that
Joe,
once you reach adulthood, you need not have to have somebody telling you what to do.
but you're saying the same thing over and over, and
Yes.
that
Now,
is agreed to. There's no dispute about that. Yes, education continues. You ought to continue to look, and we continue because we do continue to learn. But when their mind is so that when they're young like that, they will take things in. That's when it has to be fed the proper food. A part of that is the knowledge of how we are governed, what our elected representatives ought to be doing, what the laws of the country is saying, and why they're saying that. These are things that can be taught at the elementary level of education.
Anybody has any idea of what is the percentage of this population right now that has a high school diploma at a minimum? Anybody has any idea?
I
The
don't.
population is not over 400,000.
Uh-huh. And you want to know what percentage has a high school diploma?
I'm just trying to see if it is happened to be at the end of the budget. I thought they had a table in there.
About the number of people that has high school diplomas?
Yeah, we have a population here, they projected at 410,000.
Right.
Now, 164,000 of them are the labor force. And then the unemployment rate is at 2.5%. So if you have 164,000 employed. Sorry, the employment labor force, right? So we are looking at almost 50% of the people employed. Let's call it 48%, 45. Don't you think at that level we should have at least about 100,000 people with a high school diploma? I'm just
What's
giving a
what's the point?
extrapolate. The point I'm making is that if we find that 90% of our people don't know the Constitution, but maybe a percentage so high have graduated with a diploma, we need to maybe ask indeed. It's not that we didn't teach them the Constitution. If maybe with that teach them maybe critical thinking, maybe with that teach them the importance of continuous learning. And let me give you a good example.
What are we teaching them then?
Let me give you a good example. You have these correspondence courses now. They are very common, especially with the technology. You have a lot of people that go up to master's degree right now in basement or in their homes. Now, you have what you call required reading. Then you have recommended reading. I used to do lectures to some of them doing the same courses. Not even one of them wants to do the recommended reading. They do the required reading. When it's by doing some of that recommended reading, you're expanding your knowledge, but they are satisfied with just passing. So what they are beginning to do, they memorize, then they regurgitate, and they get the exams. So maybe we need to look indeed of how we are teaching our people, how we are educating them. It's not whether they are to be taught the Constitution or not. You could be teaching them the Constitution and they don't even understand it.
But why would you go so far away from that when it makes so much sense? What you're saying there, that is basically the same thing. You didn't want the recommended reading even, and they certainly didn't want the required reading. But what they have to do something to pass. Part of what the criteria should be for passing ought to be to know something about the Constitution. What's so difficult to implement a system to ensure that?
The
Just
question I would want to,
put it in tests.
I think you were asking the question before. I think we need to examine our syllabus at the school level.
I believe that that is the way to go.
Maybe that is where we
That
need to
would
look
be a
at.
start.
Because
Yes.
maybe we are teaching them reading and writing and arithmetic, but we are not teaching them. For example, sorry to take up. When I was going to school, you know how we learned at the ABC? We were using matchstick with holes, so we knew why 2 times 2 makes 4.
Right.
We knew why 2 times 3 was 6. But now what they do, you ask one of them from school, 12 times 12, you take one each time and you say 1 for the 4. How you get that? How they do not know how they arrive at it. They are losing concepts. They are not being taught concepts.
Well,
So they memorize the times tables, but they don't know why 4 times 4 is 16. I'm just giving you an example.
So-
Same in economics.
you go ahead,
I'm
Jeremy.
saying also given the failure of that system that we are recognizing, then how can we expect then that we could just ask people, if you're interested, learn the Constitution, and there has to be, the point we're making is that there has to be some level of intervention to start people in that direction to learn at least the basics of our Constitution. Otherwise, the status quo will remain. We have all these weaknesses in our education system that you're pointing out. So there will be people who will take it upon themselves to learn and to continue to read and all that. But I can say that those are in the minority. The majority, as you even pointed out, within the school system won't do it of their own volition. But there could be a way to influence, to teach the Constitution, not just in the primary schools or the secondary schools or in the formal system, but even through the media, through some regular programming in between news instead of having advertisement. Come up with some part of the Constitution and discuss that, just like little advertisement right through could be another way to stimulate public thought and reading of the
I
Constitution.
fully agree with you, Jeremy. I want to give you an example of when I was in PG, Toledo. along with my good friend Williams, and we started what we call a young people's discussion circle. And in that young people's discussion circle, apart from getting heads of departments, talking to them about their departments, we used to teach them about the Constitution.
Right.
We gone to the level with a man like Vernon Leslie, who was head of the extramural department. We used to get him to bring some of the best professors from UWI to come and speak at the community center in PG. Because I found that the people in that community had an interest in knowledge and learning. So when we bring that professor, that hall is ram jam. When we have that young people discussion circle, the place is jam. The people wanted knowledge. They were hungry for knowledge. And we made it available.
They have a teachers college still, right? I mean, I know that a place where teachers go to learn how to teach. Do they even teach the Constitution there? Because then for somebody to teach it, they would need to know it themselves. Do the teachers know? And I don't want to bring the teachers under the microscope here just yet, because we could look at that at some point. Are the teachers qualified to teach what they need to be teaching?
That's the big question. That's a big question.
We have to try and say it next week. We're out of time. Guys, thanks a lot for a healthy discussion. Jeremy, thanks for joining us, man. And don't be no stranger.
Sure. Always a pleasure to be with Joe. Also, I need to come on more with him, and I like the spirited discussion, and
he will engage you.
Yes, definitely. Sure.
And
Jeremy, I may know you more than you think I do.
But
I do have an admiration for your pursuit of wanting to get things done. I must congratulate you on that, my brother.
All right, Jeremy, we want to put the GoFundMe information back up. We'd like to encourage people out there, please support this cause. When we see people step out like that, doing something for the good, guys, it's a very unselfish move. You're looking out for everybody. This is not about Jeremy. This is not about Stan Creek, PG, or any part of the area of Belize. This is about Belize. We need to have a government that's adhering to the Constitution to which they pledge allegiance. And the only way we can do that is have people that challenge them when they don't. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys, for the audience out there, Susan and Jerome, people that we really value the opinion. Susan is putting up the information for us. Please donate something to this, and it's a cause that will help us all in the long run. Guys, Joe and Jeremy,
thanks very much.
CY, we're done here.
Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Ling Bang, no matter if you're 50 or 10, Ling Bang. Big bully in a pen, Ling Bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme, Ling Bang. No matter if you're 50 or 10, Ling Bang. Big bully in a pen, Ling Bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme. First, make we see how far your back bend. If you don't know how, get less of a current. Turn your body round like a smoothie or the blend. New dance trend. Style we no borrow, style we no lend. For sure, we no the beg no friend. From in the thing far way back when for the elders and the children. Can't do the sticky leg unless you do it like charge. Back it up in the garage. Make them know we squad living large. Hold a salute if it's sarge. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Ling bang, no matter if you're 50 or 10, ling bang. Big bully in a pen, ling bang. Rooster or hen, this one ya. Creme de la creme, ling bang. No matter if you're 50 or 10, ling bang. Big bully in a pen, ling bang. Rooster or hen, this one ya. Creme de la creme. We like when you shake it. Never gonna DR, we gon' fake it. Entire yam, heart and thick. Mama take 9 months to make it. Act like you didn't need Johnny cake before you bake it. Take a pass to the cars, then twerk it. Then your style you can't buy the new market. All of the styling bang surpass it, yo. Watch when they blaze it. Have the tremble like we don't tease it. Tell the DJ, rewind it. Bust a sweat and work it. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again. Introducing a new style, them call the ling bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again. Introducing a new style, them call the ling bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Ling bang, no matter if you're 50 or 10, ling bang. Big bully in a pen, ling bang. Rooster or hen, this one ya. Creme de la creme, ling bang. No matter if you're 50 or 10, ling bang. Big bully in a pen, ling bang. Rooster or hen, this one ya. Creme de la creme. From Baka Jungle all the way to Yabra, Corozal and Dangriga. Check Pamali sister Julia, teaching the tourists the key kaka. Through the alley and the plaza, no jump past 41 mile marker. If you want something extra, I want you that feel librata. There for a while, but now I am back again. Introducing a new style, them call the ling bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again. Introducing a new style, them call the ling bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Ling bang, no matter if you're 50 or 10, ling bang. Big bully in a pen, ling bang. Rooster or hen, this one ya. Creme de la creme, ling bang.
I tell Choco Pint, you have to drink the roots tonically, the money drink it like water. But you don't really know the formula.
Read the rules, did the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Read the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Choco Pint on. Read the rules, did the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Read the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Me hear the man ball when him catch a rouse. Me hear the man scream, down in a sorrow. Never want to take money about the roots from Miss Larrow. The way the white ball, he could have back up sing off his sparrow. The roots that he don't keep up, them way on. Talawala, pala de umbre, sassy bella, so some up is a bed and ginger. And lunch, grab up, find back and bitter wood. But the main ingredient, are the one Miss Larrow invent. And if you see a man back then, it just left Miss Larrow tent. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Choco Pint on. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules. They get a boy to pay with himself back up Bethel. He said he could hear voices coming from hell. One of the voices tell him to snatch up the girl named Gretel. Now he a big bowl of the bally in a one jail cell. The rules that he come cheap up, gang radio, Talavala, Pala de Umbre, Sassy Villa, so summa, pizza bed and ginger, and loud scrabble, fine back and bitter wood, Sarah say, and just a touch of sinner, but the main ingredient, and the one Miss Larrow invent, and if you see a man back bent, he just left Miss Larrow tent. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Choco Pint on. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules. You better tell them from my own experience. We start out in September 1st, getting ready for the 10th. The feeling that come over me was so intense. We take off all of my clothes and jumps around back fence. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules. Choco Pint on. Greedy the rules, did the rules, did the rules.